The very first time I heard that little puppy scream, it was 5:26 p.m. on July 12th, 2024. I remember the exact minute because the heat felt like it was melting the cracked asphalt in the Sunmar parking lot off Highway 87 in Dusty Ridge, Arizona. It was one of those Fridays when the whole town seemed held together by slow gossip, grocery carts, and the hope that the weekend might bring a little mercy from the sun. Little Mia Alvarez, just 8 years old, was standing there with this worn-out pink leash wrapped around her hand. She was so tiny that her whole arm jerked forward when her mutt, Rocket, pulled ahead to sniff a dropped corn dog lying by the ice machine. Rocket was just being a dog, trying to claim anything that smelled halfway decent. Then I noticed 3 local boys cutting across the lot. Mesa King's kids, loud, careless, wrapped in those hoodies they all seemed to treat like a uniform. One of them, Tyler Briggs, 16, red bandana hanging from his back pocket, stepped toward Rocket. He wore this dull little smirk, the kind that said he'd done worse and didn't think much about any of it. And without even stopping, he lifted his sneaker and drove it straight into Rocket's ribs. The sound that pup made, God, it sliced right through the hum of idling engines and the noise of people coming in and out of the store. Mia screamed and dropped to her knees, gravel tearing at her palms. Rocket tumbled sideways. I was about 20 feet away, walking across the lot with a bag of ice in one hand, wearing my worn Hells Angels Arizona biker vest. I froze mid-step and saw everything. The kick, the boys' faces, the chain hanging from Tyler's wallet, the way Rocket curled into himself. My jaw locked hard enough to hurt. Before that dog even hit the ground, my phone was already in my hand. Folks later argued about what moment crossed the line. The kick, the little girl crying, or me saying into the phone, "Brothers, you need to get down here now." But all that happened later. Earlier that morning, July 12th, before the scream, before anyone knew the day was about to take a sharp turn, Mia's mom, Carla Alvarez, woke up in her small 2-bedroom apartment on Yucca Lane. The swamp cooler was rattling like it was giving its final warning. Her phone buzzed with another overdue notice from Desert Ridge Utilities. Past due, $183.27, shut-off scheduled for July 20th. That kind of message can pull the floor right out from under you. She tried to be quiet getting out of bed so Mia could catch a few more minutes of sleep. She stepped over Rocket's dog bed, which was really just an old folded blanket with a cheap blue chew toy shaped like a bone lying on top. Rocket thumped his tail once and licked her ankle. Carla scratched behind his ear and poured the last scoop of budget kibble into his bowl, adding a splash of water to make it look like more than it really was. Her housekeeping shift at the Sunrise Motor Lodge started at 8 a.m. and ended when we're done, which usually meant dragging herself home around 4:30, tired, sore, and smelling like bleach and stale smoke. Driving down Main Street that morning, she passed the Hells Angels Arizona Dusty Ridge Charter Clubhouse, a low stucco building with boarded windows and a hand-painted sign. 3 Harleys were parked out front, chrome throwing back the early sunlight. She tightened her grip on the steering wheel and reminded herself of what she always told Mia. Those men aren't your friends. If you hear those engines, you cross the street. In her mind, monsters wore loud pipes and leather. She hadn't learned yet that trouble could also come wearing cheap sneakers and a bored grin. By 3:15 that afternoon, the motel parking lot shimmered like a steel griddle. Carla clocked out, tucked her timesheet, $11.25 an hour, into the folder, and headed to her car. She checked her bank app, $42.19 left until next Friday. She let out a breath that sounded like defeat and drove home past the dumpster-tagged MK in red spray paint. Mia sat on the concrete steps waiting for her. Rocket was curled in her lap, wearing a red dollar store collar still too big for his neck. Her pink backpack lay at her feet, math worksheets sticking out. "Mama, the neighbor said Rocket's not allowed to pee near her window," she blurted out. "She said we're trailer trash, even though this isn't a trailer." Carla forced a smile. "You and Rocket are my treasure, not trash." She noticed the Mesa King's boys hanging at the far end of the lot, vaping, eyeing cars that weren't theirs. She recognized Tyler, always on a beat-up BMX, always everywhere he shouldn't be. In Dusty Ridge, the Hells Angels had been around longer than the big chain stores. Folks could still recall the Wild Bar fight in '09, the sheriff's raid in '13, where they found way more beer than bullets, and that same year's Christmas toy run where patched men handed stuffed animals to kids outside St. Mary's. The Mesa Kings were a newer breed, restless teens tagging walls and stealing snacks from Sunmar just to feel like someone noticed them. Mia hugged Rocket tighter. "Mama, our bikers bad guys. They're not here for us," Carla said, an answer that wasn't really an answer at all. To her, safety meant staying invisible. She had no idea her quiet little world was about to scream loud enough for half the town to hear. Around 5 p.m., Carla decided to stretch what was left of their money: tortillas, a bag of rice, and a small can of dog food as a treat for Rocket. She and Mia walked the half-mile to Sunmar along Highway 87, Rocket trotting beside them with his red collar glinting and his blue chew toy clamped proudly in his mouth. The air smelled like hot asphalt and dust, with a sugary whiff of spilled soda. As they crossed 3rd and Main, a pack of Harleys rolled by in the opposite lane, engines rumbling, riders wearing Hell's Angels patches on their vests. Mia covered one ear. "They're so loud." Carla stepped closer to her daughter. Her pulse jumped. One of the riders, Logan Bear Price, glanced their way for half a second. I saw a tired mom, a little girl holding onto a dog like he was her whole world, and a mutt trotting along happy as could be. Then the light changed, and I rolled on. Inside Sunmar, the AC blasted out cold air that smelled like hot dogs spinning on rollers. Carla counted her money twice before handing over $19.73. Before they stepped outside, Carla crouched down. "Hold Rocket's leash tight, okay? If you see any of those kids from the apartments, or any bikers, you come straight to me. No talking." Mia nodded and curled her fingers around the pink leash handle like it could anchor her whole life. Carla didn't know yet that someone else's shoe could cut right through that little pink tether. At 5:26 p.m., the parking lot hummed with end-of-day life. Pickup trucks filled up at the pumps. A school bus rumbled past on Highway 87. Someone's radio played old country music, and then everything went sideways. Carla had stepped back inside the store to grab the cheap cereal she'd forgotten, telling her little girl, "Stay right by the door. Don't wander." So Mia stood there near the ice machine with Rocket nosing around a half-eaten corn dog someone had dropped. The air felt thick enough to chew, but that kid had lived her whole life in Arizona heat, so she barely noticed. She hummed to herself, looping the pink leash around her wrist the way kids do when they're trying to keep busy. That was when the Mesa Kings drifted across the lot, Tyler out front in his hoodie like he didn't feel the sun at all, his buddies Jaden and Louise trailing behind. Jaden had his cap on backward, and Louise kept darting looks up and down the road like he already knew it was a bad idea to be there. Tyler spotted Rocket and got that same mean smirk he always wore. He drifted toward Mia like it was a game. "Hey, look at this little rat," he said. "Leave him alone," Mia replied. She tried to sound strong, but her voice was tiny, almost swallowed by the heat. Tyler's grin sharpened, and before that girl even had a chance to breathe, he swung his sneaker into Rocket's side. It wasn't even a full kick, just a lazy, careless hit, but it was enough to knock the pup off his feet. Rocket yelped, this high, painful cry that tore right into you. His blue chew toy shot out of his mouth and slid under a parked Ford Explorer. Mia screamed and dropped to her knees. "Rocket!" I was maybe 20 feet away, just stepping out of Sunmar with a bag of ice in my hand when the motion caught my eye. Foot, fur, child hitting the ground. I didn't even realize I'd dropped the ice until it burst open on the pavement. "Hey!" I shouted across the lot as I started moving. In that ugly instant, I'd seen enough. Who swung? Who laughed? Who cried? And my patch, my code, my whole damn life didn't allow me to ignore something like that. I crossed the distance in about 3 long strides. My boots slapped against the concrete, and for a second, the boys froze. Then they tried to shrug it off. "We were just joking," Tyler said, hands up, eyes flicking to the death's head patch on my biker vest. The dog got in the way. I dropped into a crouch beside Mia and Rocket. The little guy was trembling hard, one back leg tucked under him at a weird angle. I slid my hand under his chest, lifting him slow and gentle. "Hey there, buddy," I said softly. "You with me?" Rocket licked my wrist, another little whine slipping out. "He kicked him," Mia sobbed. "Sir, he kicked Rocket." Her tears cut little streaks through the dust on her cheeks. My jaw tightened as I stood up with the pup in my arms. "You just kicked a little girl's dog," I said, voice low. And you did it in front of witnesses. Tyler snorted. What witnesses? I nodded toward the store cameras. Then to the two older women near the doors, phones already recording, faces set in that don't mess with the child way older ladies get when the world crosses a line. Luis shifted on his feet, suddenly not so tough. Jaden muttered, Ty, let's bounce. My phone was already in my hand. I turned toward my black street glide by the curb and hit a contact named Saint. Need eyes at Sunmar, I said. Some kids put a boot into a little girl's dog. To those Mesa Kings, it was just another cruel joke on a hot Friday. To me, it was enough reason to call in brothers who actually stood for something. And that call was about to change who looked after this little family from then on. By 6:03 p.m., Rocket was lying on a stainless steel table at Desert Ridge Animal Clinic. The AC blasted too cold against Mia's sunburned neck while the vet, Dr. Ellen Cho, checked Rocket's hind leg. Sprain, she said. Maybe a hairline fracture. We'll need x-rays. Could have been worse. Carla burst through the door 5 minutes later, still in her motel housekeeping uniform, panic written all over her face. Where's my daughter? In here, I said, stepping out of the exam room. Up close, folks say I look bigger. Late 30s, sun-beaten face, tattoos creeping up my neck, Hell's Angels Arizona patch on my vest. Your girl's okay. The dog's hurt, but she stayed right by him. Carla's stomach dropped when she saw the patch. What did you? Nothing but bring them here, I told her. 3 Mesa Kings kids thought it was cute to use him for target practice. I wasn't leaving her there alone. At the front desk, the vet slid a paper toward Carla. Estimate, $486 for x-rays, meds, splint. I saw her face fall. I didn't need to know her bank balance to understand. Before she could even speak, I pulled my wallet out and placed my card on the counter. Run it, I told the tech. Do it right. No corners cut. You don't have to, Carla whispered. I saw it happen, I said. That makes it my business. Later that evening, while Rocket stayed for observation, we ended up at Rosie's Diner across the street. Neon flickered overhead as we sat in a booth. I ordered Mia chicken tenders and Carla a burger. She said she didn't want it, but once she smelled it, that changed quick. So you're just paying? Carla asked, somewhere between suspicious and grateful. I shrugged. We take care of what cowards break. It was the first real meal those two had eaten in weeks without guilt hanging over it. And the first moment Carla started wondering if she'd been wrong about which patches in town were worth fearing. On July 15th, 3 days after the kick, Rocket limped carefully around their apartment with a little white splint on his leg. Mia hovered like a tiny nurse, setting his freshly washed red collar just right and placing his blue chew toy in front of him. Carla had tucked the vet's paid-in full receipt, with my name scribbled on it, inside a kitchen cabinet where Mia wouldn't see it and worry. Just after 7:01 p.m., as the sky turned purple, something slammed into their front door. A rock. The cheap wood splintered. Rocket yelped and tried to jump, then whimpered when pain stopped him. Mia screamed. Carla ran to the peephole, heart hammering. 3 hoodies tore around the corner. A flash of a red bandana. When she opened the door, she found a crumpled note. Keep your mouth shut, or we'll finish the dog next time. MK. Her hands were shaking when she called the Dusty Ridge Sheriff's Office. Deputy Ray Salazar showed up 20 minutes later, scribbling in a little notebook. Looks like kids trying to scare you, he said. I'll file it, but without cameras or names. And that thin, almost useless protection settled on their living room like more dust they didn't need. After he left, Carla stared at my number in her phone, the one I'd insisted she take at the diner. Finally, she hit call. It's Carla, she said when I answered. They came by. They left a note. I'll be there in 10, I told her. When Carla decided which number to call first, law enforcement or a biker, it was quiet, but it changed the whole path of her life. That was the moment her world tilted just a little, even if she didn't feel it right away. If you believe folks ought to be held responsible for cruelty, no matter how small it looks on the outside, hit that like button. Because sometimes the smallest ones among us need the biggest shields. By 8:05 that night, I was standing in Carla's living room with the threatening note in my hand. Rocket sniffed at my boot, tail wagging in this unsure little rhythm like he wanted to trust the world again but wasn't convinced yet. Outside, through the thin apartment walls, you could hear the steady rumble of 2 approaching Harleys. Reinforcements. You filed a report? I asked. With Deputy Salazar, Carla said. He took notes. My jaw tightened. Notes won't stop a punk with a rock, I said. And those kids know your address now. A minute later, Nick St. Herrera, our charter president, stepped into the doorway. He was in his late 40s, gray dusting his temples, eyes calm and sharp. His biker vest read president under the death's head patch. After I filled him in, Saint said, "We can move you. We've got a place out on Old Quarry Road. Old ranch house. We use it for parties and for situations like this." "I'm not hiding in some biker fortress," Carla snapped. Saint just shrugged. "Call it whatever you want. But 3 kids with nothing to lose know exactly where your little girl sleeps. Out at the ranch, they'd have to get through us first." By 9:30 p.m., Carla had thrown clothes into trash bags, grabbed Mia's pink backpack and Rocket's blanket, and climbed into the back seat of my truck. Mia sat up front with Rocket curled in her lap. When we turned onto Old Quarry Road, all the town lights dropped behind us. Just desert hills, big sky, and the kind of quiet that almost feels like a promise. Carla slowly realized that safety doesn't always look like fences and friendly neighbors. Sometimes it looks like a house circled by motorcycles and men who don't sleep much. The old ranch house was low and weathered, with a wide porch and a yard full of tire tracks and packed dirt. It smelled like coffee, cigarette smoke, and something warm simmering on the stove. Inside, mismatched couches were shoved in front of a TV, and a beat-up wooden table anchored the kitchen. A faded American flag hung on the wall. On the morning of July 16th, Saint gathered us around that table and laid out the plan. 2 on the gate, 2 on the perimeter at all times, he said. Never more than 3 of us inside unless we're eating. We don't want the kid thinking we're invading her space. How many days? Carla asked. Until the Kings are more scared of us than they are invested in impressing each other, Saint said. And that's pretty much how life looked from then on. I slept on the couch with one boot still on, just in case. Brothers took turns sitting on the porch swing with cigarettes and coffee. Mia worked through her math sheets at the kitchen table while Saint fixed a chair leg that had been wobbly for years. Rocket snored under the table, his little splint sticking out, his red collar bright against the dim room. At night, Carla lay in the back bedroom with Mia, listening to low voices outside and an engine adjusting every so often. She thought she'd feel trapped. Instead, she slept better than she had in months. Protection, she realized, wasn't always badges and forms. Sometimes it was someone staying awake on a porch at 3 a.m., so your kid could dream about something softer than threats and rocks. On July 20th, all of Dusty Ridge woke up to a fresh post blowing up on the What's Happening in Dusty Ridge Facebook group. Someone had uploaded grainy Sunmar security footage, Tyler swinging his leg, Rocket flipping, Mia falling to her knees. The caption read, "Kids kicking a puppy in our town. Recognize them." By noon, it had over 2,000 shares. Comments exploded, some folks furious at the boys, others calling for old-school justice. Back at the ranch, I scrolled through the comments, jaw set. This was bound to happen. "Can we get it taken down?" Carla asked. She looked sick. "Mia's right there." Saint shook his head. "Maybe, but it's already out. Might help us. Hard for someone to touch you when half the state is mad on your behalf." That afternoon, Channel 4 Tucson rolled up with a news crew. Salazar and Saint argued softly near the fence before agreeing to let the interview happen on the porch. Carla wore her best shirt. Mia had on a clean dress. Rocket rested his head on her lap. They blurred Mia's face, but they didn't blur Rocket's splint or his red collar. "I don't want anyone hurt," Carla said to the camera. "I just want my daughter to feel safe walking our dog. I'm grateful for everyone who helped us." She didn't say the words Hell's Angels, but the cuts behind her did that talking for her. That night, someone egged the ranch gate. "They're mad and stupid," one of the boys said as he sprayed it off. "Good. Mad and stupid make mistakes." Carla felt exposed by the attention and protected by it at the same time, like standing under a streetlight, visible but harder to erase. On August 3rd, monsoon rains finally broke over Dusty Ridge. The Mesa Kings had backed off after the TV story, drifting to the edges of town. But Tyler still needed to prove something. That evening, I got a text from an unknown number. "You think you own this town? Meet us at the wash if you want to keep playing hero." Attached was a photo of the Desert View Apartments courtyard. "Trap," Saint said immediately. "Yeah," I agreed. "But one we can use." We looped in Deputy Salazar. He'd been building a quiet case on the Kings for a while. On that humid, thunder-heavy night, plainclothes deputies settled into positions near the old quarry wash while I rode out with two of our guys. Carla and Mia stayed at the house, Rocket curled between them on the couch. Out at the wash, Tyler strutted across the gravel like he owned it, hoodie soaked through. Jaden and Luis lingered behind him, smoking nervously. "You brought cops." Tyler sneered when Salazar stepped out of the shadows. "No," I said. "He did." I jerked my chin toward the deputy. The confrontation was mostly talk, loud teenage bravado against the patience of men who'd seen worse. But then Tyler shoved me, and a tiny baggie slipped from his pocket. Deputies moved fast. Resisting arrest hit the list, and Jaden and Luis folded quick, hands behind their heads. Back at the ranch house, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and told Carla what happened. She kept one hand resting on Rocket's head the whole time, like she was afraid the world might knock him down again. Justice didn't come riding in on roaring engines or in some dramatic showdown. It came quietly, paperwork, signatures, handcuffs, and in the steady comfort of knowing that once you draw a line and defend it, the world stays a little clearer for everyone on your side of it. By November 10th, 2024, Dusty Ridge had settled into new rhythms. Tyler was sitting in juvenile detention down in Yuma on charges for animal cruelty and vandalism. Jaden and Luis were out doing community service at the animal shelter. Ironic, maybe, but fitting. For Carla and Mia, life had shifted in ways they never expected. Our Hells Angels chapter had quietly started a small family support collection. One night during a meeting, Saint slid an envelope across the old quarry kitchen table toward Carla. "Back electric and water," he said. "Plus first and last month on a different place. House on Mesquite Street. Yard big enough for Rocket." "I can't just take this," Carla said immediately. "You're not," Saint replied. "You're giving us a story to tell ourselves, that we show up when it matters." On weekends, I started teaching Mia how to change a tire out back. Rocket supervised from his blanket like he was foreman of the job. Mia's pink backpack hung in their new Mesquite Street kitchen, patches sewn on with care, one from school, one tiny support patch that read "Angels Watching." At Rosie's Diner, Mara would sometimes comp Carla's coffee. "Heard you got a new place," she'd say. "Looks good on you." And somewhere along the way, what started as a panicked evacuation in the middle of the night turned into a key sliding into a new front door, into that strange, warming feeling of realizing other people were rooting for you to make it. Family shows up in the strangest places. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. Because sometimes the people you were warned to fear turn out to be the only ones who refuse to look away. On a mild April afternoon in 2025, the Dusty Ridge Elementary playground was buzzing the way it always did at the end of the school day. Kids swinging, teachers hollering reminders, the smell of dust and orange slices settling over everything. Carla stood by the chain-link fence watching Mia and Rocket, fully healed now, red collar shining, running circles under the big, old mesquite tree. Down on Main Street, 3 Harleys rolled past at a slow, respectful crawl. I was up front, Saint right behind me, and one of our newer guys taking the rear. We kept the engines low, not the harsh thunder Carla used to brace against. A couple of parents looked over, instinct flickering in their eyes. But Mia didn't even flinch. She paused mid-chase, hand on Rocket's back, and waved at us with her whole arm. I just lifted 2 fingers off the handlebars as we turned toward Old Quarry Road. Didn't need words. Didn't need anything more. The sound of our engines followed us for a moment. Deep, steady, familiar, then blended into the everyday hum of town. Buses, trucks, trains in the distance. That night, as Carla locked the door of their Mesquite Street home, Rocket curled at her feet and Mia's pink backpack hanging on its usual nail, she heard another pair of bikes rumble by somewhere out on the road. For the first time, she didn't tense. The porch light glowed over Rocket's red collar as he lifted his head, ears perked, then let out a soft sigh and settled back down. The camera lingers on that little backpack and the red-collared dog sleeping beneath it while outside. 2 engines roll by like a steady heartbeat in the night. Not a threat anymore. Just a reminder that somewhere out there, one way or another, someone is still on watch.